Perched high up in the Maluti Mountains, Lesotho is one of the most inhospitable and remote countries in southern Africa. High mountains and deep valleys make it virtually impossible to travel without the aid of an old faithful Basotho pony. It wasn't until international funds were made available in the early 1960s that there was any progress in road construction. Bob Phillips claimed he'd just built the worst road in the world and asked if it would be of any interest to motoring clubs. Thus, in 1967, the Sports Car Club organised the first Roof of Africa rally, which was won by a youthful-looking Jan Hetema in a Volvo. By the 1980s, cars had changed somewhat. Compare three-times winner Des Tarberton's futuristic King Scorpion to the early Volvo. Victory in the 1984 event went to the Scarab of Ensslin and Ramsayer, and Neil Woolwich claimed the two-wheel class honours on a 500cc Kawasaki. The 1987 event was described as one of the toughest on record, and Philip Malan and Brian Holt eased their Toyota Land Cruiser through the mud to give the marque the honour of being the first to notch up 3 wins. German rider Jürgen Mayer, on the other hand, gave KTM its 9th win in the mountains. History was made in 1989 when there were ties for both the car and motorcycle wins. Rob Yates and 1976 motorcycle winner Kenny Skolthammer teamed up to give Raceco its maiden roof win, as Kawasaki riders Alfie Cox and Jeremy Davies shared the motorcycle win. Nissan's crew of Arpi Reinicker and Lucas Dreyer were credited with the same time as Yates and Skolthammer to share the car honours. Richard Schilling became the first car driver to notch up a hat-trick of wins by taking the car honours in 90, 91 and 92. And Alfie Cox was starting to stamp his authority on the event and scored his hat-trick on a Kawasaki in 91. Springbok rallyists Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek won in 93 with their potent turbocharged Toyota Hilux 4x4. And Cox was Honda mounted for his 5th win. Land Rover scored its first win in 1994 when Cliff Barker and Mike Redden beat the dust with V8 power. And Cox sailed to victory for KTM. Yamaha quad racer Derek Johnson made history by being the first four-wheeler to finish, but the quad class was not officially recognised in those days. Last year, victory went to Stan Illman and Franz Stangel's technologically advanced Raceco Porsche, which featured a state-of-the-art Tiptronic semi-automatic gearbox. After spending much of the season in Europe, Cox returned to notch up another win for KTM, while Vickers van Deventer made it look easy on Yamaha's quad. First in production class in their Toyota Land Cruiser was enough to give Arpi Reinicker and Robin Houghton the national championship title. Each year, the Lesotho Sun is invaded by hordes of competitors who are always busy with last-minute preparations before scrutineering takes place. This year, there was a good entry of almost 160 cars, bikes and quads, which turned the car park into a colourful bustle of activity. An added attraction was a large contingent of some of the top European enduro riders determined to conquer the Malutis. Both the 200 and 250 motorcycle championships were wide open, and any rider in the top 3 of each class had a realistic shot at the titles. Alfie Cox's domination throughout the year had already secured the open class, but Kevin Fisher and Grant Bloomfield were level pegging for the runner-up position.
I was in Europe last year, you know, obviously Dirk and his brother Bert van Zitzewitz, who's come here before in 80 and 81. You know, they helped me out last year. I rode with the German guys that have come out this year. There's 5 of them that we're looking after. I think Dirk is the best German rider. He's come, this is his 3rd time here. He sort of, he understands how the race is. Karl-Heinz Holtz is a small 4-stroke champion in Germany, South German. He's also a fighter. I know he's a fighter. The other guys, are more the middle German riders, and I don't think we've got a threat from them. But I think Dirk and Karl-Heinz Holtz could be up in the front.
The father and son team of Franz Čepek Senior and Junior headed the specials category, while single-seater pilot Marius Borain was only 10 points adrift.
Yeah, this year we got a bit of a better lead than we had last year on the overall and the class championship. But nevertheless, the roof will still be the decider. It's better to be ahead than to be behind. So from that point of view, it's a little bit more comfort. But it's 1.5 point scoring, so it's because it's a long race, so it doesn't make that much difference.
Vickers van Deventer was way ahead of the rest in the over 200cc quad class, and likewise, Christo van der Merwe had things pretty much his own way in the small capacity class.
Daar's twee dinge. Punt nommer 1, jy moet jouself voorberei en vir jou sê jy gaan hom klaarmaak. Jy moet nie te hard probeer nie, want jy kan jou 10 kilos kan jouself uitbrand. Hierdie se hy kan jou doodmaak. So jy moet 'n pas kan ry wat jy vir 1000 km in hierdie berge pas te kan ry is nie maklik nie. Jy moet 'n pas kan hanteer van die wegtrek af om hom daar te kan maak.
All Woolwich and Vermaak needed to do to clinch the production category title was finish. Defending champions Reinicker and Houghton, on the other hand, had no option but to go for the win.
Our strategy is a very difficult one. Obviously we want to race and we want to win the race, but it'll be stupid to go out there and push it as hard as possible. Our strategy is to take it easy and to get to the finish. Our prime objective is to win the championship for Nissan, and if we can win the race, that'll be a bonus as well.
As is traditional, the Roof of Africa Rally kicked off with the Round the Houses races, which, combined with the time trial, determined the starting order for the racing proper. Heading the big field of Class A machinery was the Porsche Raceco of Stan Illman and Franz Stangl, with Derek Pinoy, Nick Harper and Rob Walk in hot pursuit. By the time the field got round the polo fields, Illman had a commanding lead and was able to adopt a cautious approach to the jumps and mud pools. Behind him, Pinoy was in full flight, trying to maintain an advantage over Craig Draper and Wade Perrin's V8 Raceco. Veteran off-road racer Linton Draper was in his usual spectacular form, with Corey Ngobeni alongside to read the route schedule. After the allotted 3 laps, Illman and Stangl took the checkered flag and headed for the 30-odd kilometre time trial.
And that's it. Race 1. Stan Illman and Franz Stangl from Carrera Motors.
By comparison, the battle for honours in Class B made the Monaco Grand Prix look like a tea party. The Čepek team held the early advantage, but Borain was in a determined mood, and his Golf-powered Mighty Mag had the advantage on the tarmac. Out of camera range, the Mighty Mag took the lead, but the Čepeks aren't the type to give up without a fight. But Borain put the Porsche to the post. Although Italians John Rowe and Andrew Davies were further back, their antics were no less spectacular, as they kept their position ahead of Richard Schilling's Motortech Raceco. Behind Schilling there was more Class B action, with Max and Juan Moore only just ahead of the similar cars of Leon Botma and Richard Everingham. The production category was the last car race of the morning, and initially Reinicker held off Cliff Barker and Malcolm Joubert as the Nissan Sani stormed into a commanding lead. Next up was the turbo Toyota Hilux of Kasi Coetzee and Richard Leek, as Barker used the ample V8 power to pass the Land Cruiser. Others seemed intent on entertaining the huge crowds that turn up each year. Stiebert Fritz and Hofmeister Harolds overcooked a corner in style, but weren't about to stop and complete a three-point turn. Coetzee picked up his pace on the final lap and almost pipped the Turbo Sani in the dash to the checkered flag. Quad racing is spectacular, and this is what the fans wait to see. Once again, Vickers van Deventer stole the show aboard his Jojo Tanks Yamaha Banshee, as Paul Breckel on the new Phillips Rotax and Yamaha-mounted Derek Johnson did the chasing, ahead of hard-charging Kevin Pereira. This year there was a new route for the time trial, which started from Lance's Gap and finished on the TY Road. Herman and Karl-Heinz Silwald set the pace in their V8 Raceco, as Rob Walk chased his dust cloud. Needing to top up with oil, most would stop, but Draper and Ugombeni felt that less time would be lost if it was done on the move. Further back, Nardus Alberts and Peter Mathieu were fighting a cat-and-mouse duel with the single-seater Raceco of Richard Carolyn. Carolyn then ran into problems, which lost him over 2 minutes and left him in 10th place. But with 900 kilometers still to go, 2 minutes didn't matter too much. Heading the Class B field was the Chepex, crisp-sounding 2-litre Porsche Raceco, while Schilling was not far behind in his new 1600cc single-seater Raceco. While the competitors took advantage of all the power and high-tech gadgetry they could lay their hands on, the locals were quite happy with traditional horsepower. Or is that donkey power? Woolwich and Vermaak were looking very relaxed at the head of the production category title race and enjoying very vocal support from the local children. Keeping a close watch on the Nissan was Coetzee and Leek, and like the leaders, they were not about to take any chances at this early stage of the race. This was the first roof for Barker's navigator, Malcolm Joubert, and one of his first impressions of the event revolved around the friendliness of the local population. Toyota's first foray into off-road racing with diesel power proved successful, as Andrew and Chris Birkin headed the Class E field in their Hilux 2.8 Turbo. But the time trial was not a good omen for the Bankfin Land Cruiser crew. An early misfire left them struggling, but fortunately it soon cleared and they picked up the pace. Special vehicles seem ideally suited to the time trial, and the Silwards led by a minute after the first day of competition. The Class B cars of Chepek and Bahrain surprised a few people by taking the next places. Any vehicle with a very short wheelbase, narrow power band and relatively high centre of gravity is difficult to control, but it's second nature to the country's top echelon of quad racers led by Van Deventer. Watch how the power's used to float over a rocky section and how the suspension soaks up the awkward-looking landings as Johnson makes it look easy. Pereira found an alternative route past the roughest bits and looked very smooth. Paul Breckel went for the press-on regardless touch, as opposed to Yuri Duplessis' smoother style. Christo van der Merwe headed the single-cylinder 200cc class on his Joburg Yamaha entry, as Edenvale's Skulkberger followed. van Deventer showed why he's rated as the best quad racer in the country, as he led by over a minute and a half after less than 40 kilometers of racing. The bike category round the houses races were held in the afternoon, and the polo fields played host to some spectacular action as AGA Panasonic KTM rider Daryl Curtis led 250cc championship leader Alex Vowles for the first lap. In close attention were the Lesotho office equipment Hondas of Errol Dalton and 1995 250cc champion Graham McLaughlin. Teammate Lance Trethui was chasing hard to keep his championship hopes alive. Seven times King of the Mountain Alfie Cox ruled in the open class race, but had 8 times German Enduro champion Dirk van Zitzewitz chasing him all the way. Lesotho office equipment rider Grant Bloomfield had another German, Karl-Heinz Holtz, on a KTM, watching his every move. Some of the closest bike racing is found in the 200cc class. Here, AGA Panasonic KTM rider Jeffrey Volater fends off a determined challenge from FMF Kawasaki's Clayton Enslin. And Hilton Hayward on the unusual HRD is chased by Rian Finikak's PD Motorcycles Honda. Time trials turned out to be a KTM benefit, as the Austrian manufacturer claimed the first 3 places, thanks to Cox, van Zitzewitz and Curtis, as Hayward did well to claim 4th and lead the 125 runners. Once the time trials had been completed, some were already packing up, but for most it was time to do repairs and preparation of machinery before the impound and nearly 500 kilometers of racing section 2 the following day. How does one become the King of the Mountain? We asked 7 times winner Alfie Cox for his recipe.